Get a drill.
Freedom is very fragile. It's more fragile when we don't know the truth. You're about to be part of FramersView, where truth is the foundation of every day's program. Join us live every weekday right here on Rumble at 1 p.m. Eastern. Now, here's Neil Frame on FramersView.
Welcome, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for being here at FramersView. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's Tuesday, July 21st. It's the first day of the 20s. First. I just made that up as I was going along, which is a good example of why you shouldn't do that. Anyway, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show. Title of the show today is Bad Ideas and No Control. And there's a reason I put that in there. I've got so much to share with you today, and for a good reason, because we really are in a point here where we're, 104 days now away from the election on November 3rd. And as you talk to people, you know, I'm known as the lost resident in our neighborhood because I'm always walking. I put a lot of hours of walking in every week. And I do that for my health and my dog health and just being in the beauty of Colorado, except for the politics. And, you know, I talk to people and, you know, I mean, we've got more Democrats in this neighborhood than we've got Republicans. And I'm just amazed at the things they don't know. That's really what we're talking about here. What you don't know is what the biggest problem is. And FramersView, the whole idea, and I mentioned this a number of times, but you know, the FramersView has two meanings. One is all my buddies call me Framer. So I thought, okay, Framers, as in me, possessive view, my thoughts about the framers that created this wonderful country we call the United States, which all of the people that came here for FIFA, for the World Cup, loved, but Americans don't. Because sometimes you just don't know how good you got it. And I would be surprised if there aren't a lot of those people that have never stepped foot on another country. You know, a good example, one of my favorite countries is Ireland because the people are so nice, everything's wonderful. But last time we were there, which is some time ago, it was before the peace accord was done, but we were going from the Republic of Ireland to Northern Ireland. You might know it's been split or was split. It is split. And yeah, there's turrets and guys with machine guns and they want to see your passport. Oh, legal ID. And you've got to get in there to get to Northern Ireland. It's not what you would expect in the United States, but it happens everywhere. And Ireland's one of the more sane foreign countries. But here we are. So I've got a lot today, man. We've got reasons, big reasons why social workers can't work to get things done. We've got, the crazy. I watched a video and I had to include it in here. It's a little bit older video, but I said in my description for the show today, I made the comment that, there's somebody or something that opens the door for craziness or for oddities or for people who normally wouldn't fit within the sphere, if you will, of common people or common sense. And there's that person or time that causes that to happen. I go back to the 50s. Elvis Presley changed music in a huge way. And then the Beatles came along and just changed everything with music in the 60s. And of course, the Beatles are still, Sirius XM has a channel that just keeps playing Beatles music, and their audience is enormous. But there's an influence that occurs. You could go to the bad stuff too. The people that have done terrible things, and all of a sudden crazy brains go, I can get away with that, or I can do that, or I don't like these people, or whatever the case might be. But there's common sense to thinking, okay, if you show it too often, people will think this is normal. I've got an example of that. Throwing a bunch of BS and making people believe what they're saying with those that are willing to absorb stupid. And that really happens. It happens all the time. The decisions, the vetting process, the candidates got in. I've talked about Katie Wilson in Seattle. I've talked about Mamdani and Plattner, and God knows who's going to end up to replace him, El Sayed, and of course, Piker, who's, in a sense, Hassan Piker is not a politician, but an enormous influence with the people, once again, that are willing to listen to that and believe it. We've got some stuff on that today. Hunter has figured out what his dad's biggest mistake was. Yeah. Can you believe that? They figured it out. He figured it out, and we're going to show you how he's figured out who did that or what caused that. And I'll help you understand. No, that wasn't a problem. There's some truth in there, but it isn't on his side of the story. The saved act of lies. I mentioned Hassan Piker. And then why should we bother keeping people who shoot people in jail? Keep them out of jail. Why should we put them in jail? I've got a story on that, which is really concerning. But first, I want to talk about this voter ID thing, because we know that the statistics are showing 70 to 90% of the people in the United States, including blacks and Asians and all of the races, not just the white supremacists, as they say, they all agree we should have fair elections, true, honest elections. But you've got the politicians that are saying no, no, no. And, you don't need voter ID, and you don't need legal ID. Well, I want to give you a few examples of what you have to do just in regular life. I've mentioned the most silly one that everybody seems to want to just ignore is that if you want to go and buy a bottle of booze, you have to have ID, unless you're like 50. Well, the people that are 50 already have legal IDs. But people that are under 50 are the ones that drink more. You have to have IDs. If you want to become a realtor or a mortgage broker, you have to go through legal ID process. You have to get fingerprints. There's a lot of steps you have to take. Police and fire. You don't just go through academies and either one of those, get through it, and then you're just a fireman or a policeman. Number one, before they ever put you in the academy, fire and police, any kind of law force, you are going to have a big, deep background check. That would be called vetting in the politics. And so they do that vetting, the background check, to make sure that you're not a serial killer. And of course they would know if you've got a box of Rice Krispies and it's broken and torn up, they know you're a serial killer. Oh wait, that's different. But anyway, the serial killer point, that they're going to know if you're a bad guy, if you're a bad driver, if you're bad this, bad that. If you shot your husband and somehow you got out of jail, you're probably not getting on the police or fire. But that's ID. You have to have that to be able to do it. You have to have proof. And there's a ton of blacks and Asians and other races that are policemen and firemen and mortgage brokers and realtors and security workers in many companies. I mean, you look at the security in buildings, a massive number of those people are big black dudes that could handle a big problem. They may not be trained like a policeman. Some of them are. Some of them are retired police that became security guards. But the point is, it doesn't matter what the race is, but you have to have ID and prove that you're safe and legitimate. So there's only one reason for the Democrats to be against it. And I will take you back, hearken back to yesteryear, when we were allowing tens of millions of people come into the United States without any vetting, without any proof of who they are, without having to go through the proper channels. And we don't know who those people are. We don't have a clue. So the Democrats want to hang on to those people, and they don't want them to be not voters because, as I think it was Kamala Harris said, that it wasn't. It was, it'll come to me in a minute who it was. But anyway, it was said, they want to take out all of the illegal aliens, the people who aren't citizens, the people who can't prove their citizenship, which is ridiculous. And if they do that, a Democrat will never, ever win. Well, that slipped out of her mouth. Slotkin, that's her name, from Michigan. She said that in front of people. I mean, I know that sounds silly that I said, well, yeah, they'd say that in front of people. But think about this. We're talking about having somebody say, if the people who are not supposed to be voting don't get to vote, we can't win. Which tells you just exactly what we know, that the voter rolls Democrat to Republican. The Republicans have more registered voters in most states. And so if you take the illegals away, who basically are tied to the Democrats because they're the ones that let them come into the country, they don't want to lose those. And therein lies our problem, my friends. That's the problem that you always will have. That if you take away the ones that are not legal, you're going to lose the Democrat voter base. That's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. So, by the way, the allergies and the smoke is absolutely killing me. I think it's every place, but here we've got tons of fires in Colorado. There's fires that are, of course, in Canada. It's blowing the smoke down here, and it just kills me. My eyes, I can hardly see what I'm doing. Anyway, I won't whine. So let's spend a couple minutes, because it's important for you to understand where we are today with these socialist communist candidates. Whoever the one's going to be up in Maine, the ones that are running in Boston, the ones that are running in New York with Mamdani and all the idiots that got in through their primary, the Katie Wilson up in Seattle, what's happening in LA, which is a high possibility that Karen Bass won't win that election. It'll be that crazy Democrat socialist. And then the one that got here in Colorado that's a complete whack job. And it goes on and on and on. And you say, well, it's just a few. Well, if it's just a few and then it gets a few more and a few more, it's a modern rush, into the Democrat Party to make it scary as hell. But how do we know that these people are bad? How do we know that it's really going to be that bad? If you're my age or older, you will remember, the history. Even for me, I grew up during Korea and, of course, Vietnam and those wars that happened. But World War II, World War One, uh, big deal, scary times. But then you take a look at what World War II became, and how did it turn out that Hitler became so powerful? And when somebody calls somebody in the United States Hitler, there's a connotation to that. That word Hitler means something. That word Hitler is of course a pejorative, but it's more than that. It's labeling somebody that's really bad. So I felt like today we really need to be putting out there, how did Hitler become powerful? And so I grokked it. I know this, but I wanted it in writing, and I didn't feel like typing it. And my friend Grok does so well at that. But I got the information and I asked this question. I said, what were the elements that allowed Adolf Hitler to become powerful? I mean, it's a fair question, right? This is Grok answering this. Key elements that helped Adolf Hitler rise to power. This is just history, but so many people don't know history. Post World War I chaos and the Treaty of Versailles. Germany was humiliated, economically strained, and resentful after losing the war. Many blamed the Weimar Republic and November criminals for signing the harsh treaty, creating widespread anger. Hitler tapped into that. It's in the museums. So Hitler tapped into that. And listen to this. The Great Depression, starting in 1929, massive unemployment and bank failures made people lose faith in democracy. The Nazis surged in elections by promising radical change. Now, I'm going to stop here on this reading for a second. What do we have them saying on the Socialist Communist Group? We need radical change. They're not going to use the 1929 unemployment and, of course, the Depression itself, but they can talk about how bad the economy is. Well, what they forget about is the economy is so bad because Biden caused it. We were at 9% inflation rate when Biden was in office. But never mind that. We're going to talk about it and use that. Then Hitler's charisma and propaganda. This is Mamdani. This is El Sayed. There are so many candidates that are using this charisma with propaganda. The guy in Texas, I'm terrible with names, but all of these people, they have the charisma and they say stuff and people actually believe it. He was mesmerizing speaker who exploited fears. Barack Hussein Obama offered scapegoats like Jews and communists and projected strength. Gee, does that sound like anything we've experienced? The Nazis mastered rallies, posters, and messaging that made them seem dynamic and unified. What do we have going on right now? Ladies and germs, this is what we were talking about. We've been talking about in all of these shows that I do and what's going up to the November 3rd election. These are the things we have to think about. This is exactly what's happening in the socialist group with DSA. So we'll continue. Weakness in the Weimar system. Proportional representation led to unstable coalition. Article 48 let the presidents rule by decree in emergencies, which Hitler later exploited to dismantle democracy. Political elites underestimated, him and made backroom deals to appoint him chancellor in 1933. Think about this. The Hitler later exploited to dismantle democracy. The political elites underestimated him. Mamdani, El Sayed, whoever ends up in Maine, all of these people through this country now. You're underestimating what these people could do. The Nazi Party organization and timing, another element. Hitler rebuilt the party after the failed 1923 beer hall putsch, creating a disciplined machine. That's what they're trying to build. Obama was working on that. And Obama thought he had it because he knew that if he could get Hillary in there, she will carry on with what he wants to do. And Trump beat her. And that slowed it down. Genuine popular support grew alongside elite maneuvering and luck. It wasn't one thing. It was a perfect storm of crisis, skill, and institutional failure. This is what I've been saying all along. We are not, in any way, shape, or form, we are not doing anything different than what was happening here. We're letting people not vetted being able to move up in the ranks and become candidates in this here United States. And they're not being vetted. I mean, they admitted that with Plattner up in Maine. The vetting was terrible. Of course it was. And the two people that did the vetting giggled about it because they wanted him in there. So that's why they laughed. I showed you that video a couple of weeks ago. And it became almost him becoming the candidate to run against Susan Collins. Now they've got a mess on their hands, and in 7 days, they have to have somebody appointed because they're not going to have an election. They're going to let the delegates come in, and they'll all gather together, and they'll pray about it, and then they're going to say, okay, let's get this socialist in there. And the main public will not have the opportunity to vote for their candidate. And that could be their problem. That could be their downfall. And I hope it is. You know, as much as I'm not crazy about Susan Collins, she's not a criminal. She's not crazy. She doesn't do stupid stuff. She has her beliefs and her standards. And she's probably not, I would never call her a right winger. She's a conservative sliding really into the moderate stage, almost Democrat. But that's what the state is. That's what the state is. So we're in this point of just the craziness is one thing, but not allowing the Nazi process that has happened get replicated with what's happening with this election in the midterms, which most people don't pay attention to, and that gives them the ability to get the power by getting in there. We can't let that happen. So I mentioned firefighters and police. And, you know, every once in a while I have to show something that just shows why it's so really very important to understand there are good people and good things that happen. And how about a dog that's probably going to die in San Francisco Bay, where the water is like 50 degrees. When I take my shower, I take my normal shower and I take the temperature down to 80 degrees because I've got a thermostat on my water controls in the shower. And that's cold after a hot shower. It's not a plunge, but I do that. And I've done that for a while. But 50 degrees, you don't last very long on that. Watch this save, we'll call it, that occurs with the dog and the firefighters in San Francisco Bay. This is a dog that's trying to save itself. And here's the fireman. Getting a towel. covering them up, taking care of them. Get on, we're going to take him home. That's some cold water there. And you know what? Being a former firefighter, someday I'll take my camera and point towards my display. I've had some very prideful moments in my life. Being a firefighter is amazing. It is a combination of saving things and people with not getting shot at, usually. And somebody dialed 911 and is having the worst day in their life when you get the tone and you go. And sometimes it's really dangerous. Sometimes it's just, we literally have done getting cats out of the tree. We've literally found dogs that were lost. But we've also saved lives. We've done CPR and brought people back to life. We've taken care of the loved ones when they've lost a family member in the moment. And for anybody to say anything other than it's an honorable profession doesn't get it. And these Democrats and the people that are trying to ruin this country are 180 degrees from the police and fire, the law services and the protective services that we have in this country. And I just had to play that. Hope you don't mind. So I said before the show, or as the show started, I said, hey, you know what? There's bad ideas and no control. Then I mentioned that somebody opens the door to allowing a lot of stupid people to get in. And while it's not the first person, this is the person that legitimized you don't have to look smart to be able to become a candidate and run for a really high office. Watch this.
I'm gonna get into some business now. Okay. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. You all helped us win in 2020, and we're gonna do it again in 2024.
Well, what are you gonna do about it?
When we get this done together, my friend. Will I see people testifying? Can I get a witness?
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Uppercase T, uppercase P. The plan. We're expected to defend the plan.
Oh, the possibilities are immense. Whatever you want to do, you can do. I eat no for breakfast. It's not just a barbershop. We got these brothers out there. This one brother who's doing a lot of work on space.
My chitty is here. Let's get a ceasefire. There must be an immediate ceasefire. I didn't know he could preach like that. You better thank a union member. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
And I hope your family is okay and your home is okay.
Have you no empathy, man?
Yes.
You know, for the suffering of other people, have you no sense of purpose?
Phew. You know, I watched that about 4 times before I put that together, And I thought to myself, this is, and you know, it's easy to use the word dumb, but sometimes it's truly qualified. This woman, you know, there's so many other women in the Democrat Party or the Democrat sphere that could be candidate that would be so much better than what she was. But how did she get here? You know, it starts in San Francisco and who she was sleeping with. And you move up the ranks as you go along. And it goes on and on and on every day. And then you become that senator. You get a senator position because Willie helped her get there. And she was a district attorney before that. And she just kept getting promoted through nefarious ways. We'll use that. We know, everybody knows that. And I really think she's probably a serious alcoholic too, just by her actions and drugs. But then she becomes the candidate as vice president with Joe Biden. Why was that? There's 3 letters, DEI. And he said, Joe Biden said, it's going to be a woman. And he went and he picked her because everybody said she'll do whatever we tell her to do because that's the way she's done her whole life. And they knew that. And they knew that she'd follow the order. And they knew that she would help that socialist process. And I think deep down inside, the people who were running that candidacy were saying Joe will probably die in office and Kamala will take over and we can control her big time. But Joe got so ill that they could control him because his wife told him what to do and he did it. Dr. Biden. So this is what opens the door. So hat tip to Maze Moore. This is a little piece that shows 3 people, Democrats, talking about capitalism. And the last one is classic, but talking about capitalism and how it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Even though it's worked for 250 years.
Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism.
Capitalism as we know it doesn't work.
Capitalism isn't, to me, it's an ideology of capital. And to me, that ideology is not sustainable and cannot be redeemed.
Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can't see. Folks, I'm going to play this one more time because I want you to see this. This is important.
Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism.
Capitalism as we know it doesn't work.
Capitalism isn't, to me, it's an ideology of capital. And to me, that ideology is not sustainable and cannot be redeemed.
It's an ideology. Capitalism is an ideology of capital. Everybody lauds her. She went to college and she's really smart. Maybe as a bartender. But what's scary is she is sly. She's another one of those that speaks well. She's charismatic with her speech, except for when she goes off the rails and gets really stupid. But all of those things that happen, all of those things that occur are, in fact, a step in a crazy direction. So I think, as I've said, we open the door for crazy and stupid by having somebody that sets the bar down so low that everybody can jump over it. And then the vetting doesn't occur and everybody just gets in. And then you've got the people who aren't told the truth and they vote for him because, oh, it's a Democrat. Okay. Now, I will admit that I don't think I know there's never been a time since 1970, I guess, midterm election. Because I was 18. Or maybe it was 72. I've never voted for a Democrat, but there's a reason. I knew the both sides of the story, but it didn't fit with what I believed. There's a lot of people on both sides that have no idea what's going on. They watch this news or that news, or they read it and watch no news, and they just vote for the party, which is good. We need the party to be able to keep control, but you need to know what's going on because in the primaries, which is where you should really be educated, In those primaries, that's where you want to learn about the people, not in the general election or the midterm election. So Jamie Raskin, boy, there's a story in itself. Jamie Raskin, a guy that, he can't resist being stupid. And, he led so many different things. He's always said, we've got the information, he never pulls up something. We know, we've got the documents. We've got the information. We've got corroborating evidence, but he never presented it. Never. Because, of course, he can't. But he used the crats too much because he doesn't know how to get off this rail. And you're going to understand what I mean by crats here in a second. Watch this, and we'll just talk about it on the other side.
We're the ones standing up for democracy and human rights all over the world. That's who we are. That's our assignment. And what are they doing? They're siding with the autocrats, the kleptocrats, the theocrats, the plutocrats. But we're the Democrats, and we're standing up for democracy wherever it's under attack around the world. And guess where it's under attack? Right here in the United States of America. Right here. Our whole Constitution is under attack. These people are constitutional illiterates, and they're savage destroyers of our Constitution. We need to go out and give them a constitutional lesson.
Yeah, let me help you out with that lesson, Jamie Raskin. The Constitution, that's a thing that you want to throw in the trash can, you and your party. And if you say, well, that's the socialist guys. Well, if you allow it to happen and you don't stop them from running for office, guess what? You are involved in the destruction of America. No way to get around it, Jamie. And you're going to give us a lesson on the Constitution? I would be surprised if this guy's ever read this cover to cover. I've read this, I've read it once or twice completely through, but I go to it and refer to it all the time. Just, there's stuff in here that's really important. It's when you open up a box, you go to IKEA. That's a good example. Go to buy something at IKEA, a piece of furniture. And there's a user guide in there that shows you how to build it, which before you're done, you might have shot your family or your family shot you because of the frustration and screaming and hollering because you couldn't figure it out. Well, guess what? This is the user guide for America. This is the user manual. And we're not destroying the country. We're trying to keep the country online. Donald Trump is reducing the inflation at the same time that he's fighting somebody that has been trying to, as successfully actually, been killing us Americans for 47 years. And they say, they tell us that Trump is doing a war of choice, that he loves wars. Somebody had to do something. The closer they get to a nuclear weapon, the more dangerous it is. You know, if you don't care about other people and you get a weapon that can kill people, we just finished, literally last night, we just finished the Followers. It's a Netflix series. Kevin Bacon is the main character. Did a hell of a job on that thing. It's kind of like, I think it was 45 episodes. But the followers, the people who buy into whatever they're selling, the bad guy, the Jim Jones type that gets everybody to drink the Kool-Aid. And in the following, which is somewhat violent, but it reminds us that from a nonviolent standpoint, we have groups of people that are becoming the followers of people that don't know that their leader is bad. Jim Jones was bad. You know, there's many characters like that. Fidel Castro, you know, Noriega. There are leaders that have, Kim Jong-un and his dad before that, Mao Zedong. All of these people get followers. And we're reminded by watching that series that you have to be careful. Sometimes you get involved in something, you're watching or listening or of what's going on, and you go, yeah, I don't want to be a part of this. You know, I remember when I was a kid, I was frustrated. You know, you always go through that as a kid. And, you know, some of my buddies, we were falling apart. And this was at the age when you start finding your channel. And I ran into a bunch of guys. They were a lot of fun to be around. We hung out and had a good time. And then all of a sudden I realized these guys are bad dudes. They're stealing stuff at the grocery stores. They're doing, I mean, it's petty by comparison to what's happening now. But the point is, I saw that and I said, I don't want to be a part of this. I want to get out of this. And it can happen so easily because somebody that's out on the fringe brings you in, which is exactly what happened to me. And all of a sudden you're buddies with them. And then you realize, yeah, this isn't good. And I had good parents who brought me up well. But, well, some people would say they didn't do a very good job. But point is that we all have to figure that out. And when we look at some of the people that we're talking about, and I've got some videos of this today, you really have to back up and wonder, how do we continue? So Mark Warner, all of a sudden he's on TV a lot. I think he's going to be one of the guys that wants to run for president. That's what happens. This is the time where they all get on TV to see if anybody's actually paying attention to them. If anybody likes him, they get kind of polls about, you know, he was on TV. Did you see it? Yes. What did you think? You know, and they decide whether they're going to run for office. And I think Mark Warner is one of those. But we're talking about Big Tent on CNBC. I'm sorry. CNBC. Watch this.
Is the idea to have a Big Tent, and do you believe that some of the individuals inside this party are flawed enough that you shouldn't have them in the tent, or you should denounce some of the things that they've said, whether it relates to Jews or Israel or Hamas? I mean, there's been a lot of comments recently that I think some people have big questions about.
Yeah. Listen, I think we saw in Maine the problem when when folks fall in love with a candidate without appropriate vetting. You know, anybody that's going to go into elective office, you got to go through your record. Now, again, people will say, well, hold it. Donald Trump has done all these things. I think we do need better vetting. I would also say this. At least we're having an ideological debate in the Republican Party. I'm sorry, in the Democratic Party.
Oops, he screwed that up. But more importantly, he said, well, Trump's doing all these things. What's all these things? Once again, the Democrats are going to claim that Trump is, you know, he's a rapist, he's a this, he's a that. Well, there's no proof of anything. And now there's serious doubt about the claim with E. Jean Carroll, which he was railroaded on that, but it was a civil case. I mean, he wasn't going to win a civil case no matter what. But they've never, ever been able to do their lies and prove it. They claimed that he caused January 6th when he was the very guy, and people that were there said, go and protest peacefully. He didn't go down there. He called for the National Guard to up their job to be there because he was worried about that happening, because he knew that there were followers of Trump that are off the edge. And when you get that big, you've got a big tent, and that big tent, there's going to be some bad folks. And should everybody have been pardoned? I don't agree with the way Trump did that. I think that the vetting process of who should be pardoned probably was overdone, but that's over. And none of them have gone out and killed anybody. Even though we know for January 6th, there were people that were at FBI in plain clothes that were leading people into the building. Everybody knows that. We have evidence. We have videos. I've shown videos of that. So, it's a big tent. You need to vet. Now, if you're not willing to stand up and just say, well, I'm not that, and let it just go, and you should be able to have a way to be able to speak your mind, then, well, guess what? You got a guy that's going to run for office. Crowley is his name. He wants to run for governor, and he's asked about socialism and supporting a socialist candidate. And watch his answer. I mean, this is fascinating.
So you're not worried about the Democratic Socialist label?
I'm not a Democratic Socialist. I'm a Democrat.
No, but the fact that Francesca Hong is.
Oh, I don't think that we should be running away from the different factions that we have within the Democratic Party. I think that each voice has its role. And so we have these primaries so people can pick their winning candidate. But at the end of the day, right, while we are focusing on winning these different primaries, it's our job to make sure that we're coalescing around one another.
Oh, really? So first of all, well, I'm not a socialist is a weak response. I don't support socialism. And, this candidate needs to be vetted, and they need to be not getting in if they don't fit within our party. As I said yesterday, every single person that gets hired into a company, whether it's private or public, or whether it's political, they should be vetted, they should be checked, and make sure that they fit within the organization. When you say, well, I'm not that, but we're going to let this guy in. That isn't the way you do it. But these are weak people. And these are people, once again, that know that they have to get more power to be able to grow up the ranks. And this gentleman, I have no idea who he is. I just know that two things happened in that you might not have kept. Well, first one was he said, well, I'm not a socialist. So, and then she said, no, I'm talking about this person. He went, oh, he's not very smart. He should have known where that was going if he was prepared at all. You don't go in front of a camera. By the way, that was MS Now asking that question. That wasn't some conservative party. And he wasn't prepared. And he didn't have a good answer. Now, when these supposed crimes occur, when these problems occur with people that are, they're probably just in a spot where they get away with things and nobody does anything about it, I have to throw this in because this is important. This is our good friend, Hunter Biden, Mr. Laptop, Mr. I'm doing drugs and buying hookers and just living the life of disgust, but he thought it was cool. Look at this and what Hunter Biden said. He's calling the appointment of Merrick Garland as Attorney General the greatest mistake his father made in office. My take is this, and removing myself from it as much as I can, my personal feelings is the single greatest mistake my father's administration was the leadership of Merrick Garland. He said in a recent podcast appearance, the reason that we are not in the situation we're in right now, he was the president and he chose him. He added more blame to Garland for failing to prosecute Trump for any role in January 6th Capitol riots, claiming there was a planned conspiracy through the Trump administration to undermine the 2020 election. Well, there's a reason that he didn't prosecute Trump. They had no evidence. In the darkness of the Democrat Party at the top, They knew that Trump said that you want to protest peacefully. They knew that he wasn't leading that. They knew that he had called for the police and the every piece of security you could bring in to keep that from happening. And they know it didn't happen by the mayor and by Nancy Pelosi, who's in charge of that with the National Guard and others for the District of Columbia. And it wasn't done. And he knew that there's no way they're going to be able to prosecute him on that. It ain't going to happen. And in fairness, they also knew when he's president, they're not going to be able to find him guilty, run him through a trial, or put him in jail. But the first one is they couldn't prosecute him. So, if you can't, you can't. And as long as you can go through this with Hunter Biden, another guy that speaks what he thinks is the truth, there's people that are going to believe Hunter Biden. There's people that are going to believe all of these loons that get their followers. The followers, man. So, legal ID, voter ID, the SAVE Act. Watch this woman. She's I'm not sure if she's senator. I think she's Congress. But she's saying there's no security, and if you have to give your legal ID, there's leak that could happen, and your private information could get out there. If that's the last problem you got, people give their ID information and their social security numbers to everybody online. It's insane what happens. Watch this.
They see a speaker who has no shame and who is pushing forward bills that are going to hurt the American people, like the SAVE Act, which isn't going to save anyone. In fact, it would prevent a lot of women from being able to vote, and it would put our identity at risk if you now have to send in a copy of your ID with your mail-in ballot.
Well, first of all, you wouldn't mail your ID in. In the mortgage business, you never have somebody email you their social security number or all those kind of things that are not to be seen by anybody. You do it on the phone or they mail it to you, but you don't just, send it out there in an email. Take it to the voter, the ballot locations and give them the information to register. In Jefferson County here in Colorado, you go to what we call Taj Mahal, which is this massive building for the county. And you go in there and you say, I want to register to vote. Okay. Do you have a birth certificate? Do you have a passport? Do you have this? Do you have that? If you got a passport, you had a birth certificate because you got to prove who you are. If you can't prove who you are, there are methods to be able to get that done. But to say, once again, people aren't going to be able to vote because they can't get legal ID is silly. An ID? Let's go to Olive Garden. Look at this.
Madam Chair, you may have seen the big news over the weekend. The never-ending pasta bowl is back at Olive Garden. I used to work at Olive Garden, so this hit close to home. But to safeguard the integrity of their pasta program, Olive Garden, as you may have seen, implemented photo ID requirements. However, in jurisdictions across the country, from Illinois and California and Minnesota, an individual can go to the polls on election day and cast a ballot without providing confirmation of their identity. In other words, Madam Chair, we're protecting our breadsticks more than our ballots in jurisdictions across this country.
Yeah. Breadsticks. Let me explain how that Olive Garden thing works. So they had the unlimited program, and you had to sign up to be able to go in and get the salad and breadsticks and that type of thing. And that little card has your ID on it. And if you go in to get that, you can't get that program unless you've got the card. They put a picture on it so that you couldn't one day go to Olive Garden and the next day give it to your friend and let them go, because people will cheat. This is the point of the whole thing. People will cheat. So once again, we have a group of people that's within the Olive Garden world that have their legal ID for the never-ending pasta. It might sound silly, but you got to have an ID to be able to get the breadsticks. It's almost so ridiculous you can't believe it. So you got the other side. I always say there's 180 degrees in these stories. You might know who Keith Ellison is. He's the Attorney General in Minnesota. Minnesota has become a swamp. Between the Leering Center and all the fraud that's going on, and Tim Walz, which was unquestionably the worst VP candidate right after, maybe even beyond, Kamala Harris, which was before him. But Keith Ellison, man, listen to what he says, and I will review it for you in case you don't catch it.
Let me tell you, there's a whole lot of people who were not 18 years old in the last election. There's a whole lot of people who were not naturalized citizens in the last election. There's a whole lot of people who sat it out because of whatever reason in the last election. But you know what? We're going to get them all this election.
Oh, really? We're going to get them all this election. The under 18, the non-citizens. This is the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota saying this speech. This isn't just some random person that happened to get in front of a podium with a microphone. This is the number one law officer in Minnesota, knowing that these things are happening and doing nothing about it. I mean, Minnesota kind of deserves what they get for voting these kind of people in. It's terrible to say that, but it's just what it is. It's terrible. So remember, I said to you, I'm going to show you the people that have the charisma that got like how Hitler got in. I want to get two things in, so I want to jump into this real quick. This is Hassan Piker speaking to a group of college students, and this is just downright scary. Watch this.
No more to the Democrats who compromise, who conciliate, and who betray us. No more to the fascist reactionaries, but no more to the Democrats who will collaborate and cooperate with the fascists, who will fund ICE, who will fund Israel, who will help poison the planet, who will stiff workers and help bosses. We don't need those Democrats.
I want to point out that you might have noticed that Mao Zedong's suit uniform is what Hassan is wearing. That should give you an idea.
In fact, we have a message. We are coming. We are on boss, and we will become undeniable.
Well, it could become undeniable because, as I've said, and I hope you've got your crayon and you've been taking notes today, one of the things that's the biggest problem that's going on is that these charismatic, so to speak, people are going to gain more and more power until they become a powerful force, which could destroy this country. And then you've got the idea of getting rid of the police and ICE and the Department of War and all of the people and the organizations that keep America safe. We need cops. I want to show you a video as we go to the end of the show today. The cops run into stuff all the time that you never know what's happened, and they're in danger. Watch this.
Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out of the car! Get out of the car! Let's go! Come out of the car! Open it! Open it! Open it! Get out! Get out! Come out through the window! Hey, come out through the window! Sir! Come out through the window now! Give me your hand! Give me your hand! Give me your hand! Give me your hand now! I got you! Get me out! All right, you okay? Anybody else in the car? No one else in the car? No one else in the car? Come with me. Here. Come with me. Is there anyone else in the car? No one else in the car? No. Come with me here. Come with me.
Now that's scary. Now I want to show you, or remind you that when he went up there, the door handle was gone. That makes me suspicious, but the car was on fire. And this cop goes up to this car that's on fire. They're not firemen. They don't have fireman clothes. They don't have a hose. They all carry a fire extinguisher. But the first thing you do is you save the life and then you put the fire out. That's the way that works. Unless you can do both at the same time, which is what firefighters do because they have all the equipment. But this guy out on the road with somebody that's got a car on fire breaks the glass and get this guy out. That's who police are. That's who sheriffs are. That's who the FBI is. That's who all of the people that protect you and me from the safeties that we miss sometimes, the dangers that we're put in front of. And they do it willingly. Like firefighters go into a fire when everybody says, why would you do that? Well, you want to make sure there's nobody else in there. Okay, that's the show for today. Thank you for being here. We will be back here tomorrow, Wednesday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. And until then, rock on.
Thanks for your support. Join the FramersView Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for your support. Join the FramersView Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern.